Good morning. I'm very excited to be here today and share a little bit about my story. I know when I come to these type of events, I'm interested in the content, but I'm typically more interested in how'd she do that? How do you do that in terms of building and growing and scaling your business? So I have two kind of things I want to share with you today. One is kind of my journey and how I use my own expertise and what I do for businesses to help my own organization grow and scale. So I'm the president and founder of Measurement Resources Company. Like Teresa said, we work primarily in the social sector, government, nonprofit, social enterprises, anyone with a mission-driven organization, and we help them better measure and communicate their impact and value. So we help them quantify how they change lives and change circumstances, and then they use that information to fundraise or get grants. Hopefully they use it for performance improvement and to make our lives better. And so I've worked with organizations all over the United States and some in Canada. I travel, I speak like this all over the country, and so I love to be home because our offices are up in Powell, so it's nice to be at a local event. So I have two goals for us today. The first is to inspire high-performing practices that drive change. So making you think, do you have a high-performing culture in your organization? And secondly, give you some strategies that you could use this afternoon if you wanted to when you go back to your office to help your organization succeed. So the first thing we need to do is take some lessons from grandfather Peter Drucker, management, I call him like the leader, the guru, the first management guru. And what he tells us is for planning for uncertainty, we have to ask ourselves, what has already happened that's going to create our future? So what's going on in your business, whether it's something internal, turnover, cash flow, anything internal to your business, what's going on externally? Is there population shifts, the aging population? Is it the millennials and the way they buy and the way they think? Is it regulations? Is it tax reform? You know, if it's healthcare reform, depending on what your business is, you have to think about what are those things that are going on today that's going to create your future. So what I want to do is just find a person at your table, 1 minute each, share what's something that's happening today in your business that's going to create your future, and the person with the shortest hair can go first. Go. If you can hear me, say hola. Hola. All right. Thank you. So regardless of what's going on in your organizations, I want you to think about those things for the entire presentation, because what I'm about to talk about, how we create high-performing measurement cultures within our organization, and I'll define that in a minute, is going to help us deal with those changes. There's always going to be uncertainties in your business. There is never a time, I was talking to Carissa and Zolene earlier today, and there's never a time in our lives where there aren't going to be things going on in our business, always. So we have to ask ourselves, you know, how do we create cultures in our organization where that's never a surprise? We just keep going. We have two choices. The first is we can just put our heads in the sand, ignore it, and we'll fall down a cliff, and then we'll find ourselves at the bottom, and we'll have a choice. We can either climb our way back up, or we can give up. Those are our two choices. Or what I want you to do is I want you to create these high-performing cultures within your organization, because they're like a bridge where regardless of what's going on in those changes, those uncertainties, you have a way to walk across it. It still might be scary because you're afraid of heights or whatever, but you can walk across it smoothly and get to the other side a little bit easier. So what is a high-performing measurement culture? For me, it is an organization who makes decisions using data aligned with their mission and their key business goals. And why I'm so passionate about this work is my own journey to entrepreneurship. So I used to work for the Ohio Department of Aging. I was their performance center manager, and my job was to evaluate all of our programs, making sure that we had efficient and effective programs. We were keeping seniors in their own homes, having positive health outcomes, as well as managing a very giant, huge Medicaid budget. Talk about a time of uncertainty. This was back in 2008. Those of you who were in business then, I'm sorry. Those of you who, lived through that time, it was a pretty rough time, especially for us that were in state government. We were facing an $800 million budget shortfall that we had to figure out how to cover, because in Ohio, we must balance our budget. And at the time, I knew that our programs were effective and that people wanted to stay at their own home. They did not want to have to move to a nursing home. But many people might not know that in Ohio, if you are sick enough and poor enough, meaning you qualify for Medicaid and you are like eligible for nursing home level care, you can go live in a nursing home on the state's dime, essentially. But there are other programs that are considered they're not entitlement programs, they're waiver programs where you get to live in your own homes and you receive the same level of care in your own homes. And they save the state, or they're actually cheaper to do that than to pay for someone in a nursing home, and people want to do that, they have better health outcomes. So I knew this, but that particular program was what the legislature could cut. And so what I did is I thought, well, when we refinance our house, you know how you can, and there's a lot of bankers in the room, so you guys get this. You can put in the terms and how much you need to borrow, and it will spit out your monthly mortgage payment. And I thought, what if we did this for long-term care? What if we could create, I called it the long-term care savings calculator, so legislatures, policymakers could put in the data, and it would spit out what their decisions would do for the state budget. And anyway, what I learned was that keeping the program as is would save the state of Ohio $250 million a year in Medicaid. And we sent that out everywhere. And the only reason we could do this was because we had a high-performing measurement culture. We had the data. We were constantly looking at the data. We were using data and making decisions. And so we shared that with the legislature. We shared that with everybody. They would listen to us. And even though our budget was cut in the biennium, it came back within 10 months. And if any of you follow state budget cycles, you never get your money back during a biennium. You've got to go back when they meet 2 years later to try to get it back into the budget. But we did something unprecedented because we had this high-performing measurement culture. Sorry. Okay, so that inspired me. That moment, I looked around my peer group, my other sister agencies, other nonprofit organizations, and I thought, why aren't more organizations doing this? Why are they not using data aligned with their mission to make decisions to be able to overcome these significant challenges in these uncertain times? So I felt the call to launch my own company, Measurement Resources, and left state government. Now, what I did at the time, I didn't know was unique, but it's something I think will be valuable to you. So at the time, I was a government bureaucrat. I'm an industrial and organizational psychologist. I did not think of myself as an entrepreneur, an author, a speaker, a trainer, all of the things that I am today. So I did what I'm sure all of you would do, and I launched an unfunded market research study. Is that what you would do? No. Okay. Well, I didn't realize that that wasn't the norm. I think it should be the norm. I think if anyone is going into business, they should do a market research study to test and validate their business. And because I did this and didn't even know that what I was doing was unique, and most entrepreneurs didn't do this the first time before they leave their cushy jobs, it allowed us to have so much more success much faster. So my advice to you today is know your market. If you haven't done one already, I would highly recommend that you do conduct a market research study to truly understand the people that you serve, what their needs are, how your products fit their needs, validate your ideas before you spend a lot of money, time, energy, and effort into this work. And so what my study did, basically it looked at, because my market again is government and nonprofits, what we looked at is how organizations, what data they had, how are they using data to make decisions, why they weren't doing that, so I could understand their pain points, I could understand what the capacity of these organizations were, and the results that I found were so interesting to me. I thought, man, if this is true, every leader across the country needs to know this information. So I did the natural next thing that I'm sure you would all do. I launched a national unfunded market research study because my sample at the time was about 30. I sent 200 surveys out, I got 30 back. That wasn't enough to convince a researcher like me that what I found wasn't biased in any way. So I found national partners to get it out across the United States. Once my sample size was big enough, the data did hold up, and I thought, okay, now I said if it was true, I had to share it with the world. Well, how do you share something with the world? I guess you got to write a book. And so that's how I became an author. Impact and Excellence is my book. And essentially what it does is it talks about the research that I'm about to share with you, as well as the 5 practical and proven steps that it takes for an organization to become high performing. So this is the research that literally got me out of the Levesque Tower. And I know that you will be unable to read it, probably because of the lighting and the small screen. So I'm going to walk you through what I found. So basically, I was looking at how do these organizations, what data do they have, and how are they using it? And using it is the key word in decision making. So there were 3 types of organizations. There was high performing, the high culture ones. That meant they had data aligned with their mission, and they were using it to make decisions. The second organizations are those they have data, but they're not using it strategically to make decisions. And then the third kind, they had no data, they weren't using data at all to make decisions. And so across the board, organizations that had data aligned with their mission and were strategically using it across business decisions were significantly more likely to achieve all the things we want to achieve. They were more likely to increase efficiencies. They had better relationships externally to their organization, so with funders, with the media, with other stakeholders and partners. They also had better internal relationships. They had better communication, collaboration, cooperation within their teams, and most importantly to business owners in the room, they were significantly more likely to have increased and improved revenues. So this fired me up. I was like, okay, this matters. I consider it the hidden success factor. How many of you are thinking about how important that data is, and that you're using data and looking at data and thinking about data? So that's really what I want you to challenge you today, is to think about if you want increased revenues, if you want increased efficiencies, if you want improved relationships with internal and external stakeholders, are you leveraging information and data about your products? So I will ask organizations, I will ask leaders, why are you not doing this? And I get very common answers, and they're probably the answers you would tell me as well if I asked you. I don't have enough money, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough staff, I don't have enough paid staff, I don't know what I'm doing. Are those things that you might say if I asked you, why aren't you doing this? Well, I call it the curse of the not enoughs. And the good news is they're just excuses. That's it. They're just excuses because you can figure all these things out, and I have the research to prove it. You can break through these barriers because there is no correlation in our data set between an organization's size, their budget, and their ability to create these high-performing cultures. So that means that we had organizations that were huge in our sample that had very, very low measurement cultures, and then we had those that were really tiny, like $50,000, and they were rocking it. They were using data for every decision that they made to propel their success. So again, it's just an excuse. Those things that I shared with you are excuses that can be overcome. The research proves that. It has nothing to do with money or size. What it has to do with is one thing, and that is the mindset of the leader. And so what I want to share with you today is to think about, do you have the mindset of a high-performing leader? And can you use those things in your advantage? And so the theory is, it all starts with us. Change starts with the leader, and we have to change our mindset, because not until we change our mindset can we change our behavior. It's just kind of psychological principles that we will not behave in a way that's incongruent with our mindset. And so when we think about creating high-performing measurement cultures, I could give you the formula, and I do give you the formula in Impact and Excellence about how to do that. However, if you don't have the right mindset, it will not work in your organization. So the leader has to change their mindset, then they will change their behaviors, then you will have the right organizational systems and structures in place that will get you to those outcomes we talked about: increased revenue, improved efficiency, so on and so forth. So we got to change the mindset. And so we're in a church, so this is appropriate exercise. So what I want to do is to have a responsive responsive reading here, and you're going to repeat after me, okay? High-performing measurement cultures are fun. They're easy. They can be done with my staff. They can be done with my budget. And they will lead to positive outcomes. Awesome. You are now officially changed. Your mindset is right. So the first thing is the goal is to create a data-driven culture. Measure everything. Really not everything, because you can have too much data. But what you do is you say, okay, what are my objectives? What are the metrics that I need to track to get myself there? And just set a plan and be consistent and always be measuring things that are related to your business goals. Have metrics attached to every single business goal that you have and every action that you have, and hold yourself and your team accountable to those decisions. And don't use it as a punitive environment, but use it as a continuous improvement. Be curious. Ask yourself, if you don't get the metrics that you see, say, well, why? And get curious about those, and then continue to evolve. So what we learned is that high-performing leaders have these 5 mindset shifts. And the first shift is saying, I am a pioneer. Because entrepreneurship, in definition, means doing something innovative, solving people's problem in a way that hasn't been solved before. That's how you're going to create a business that is relevant, that lasts. And when you stop solving someone's problem in a way that is innovative and new, you become a commodity. And then when you become a commodity, you'll start to see your revenues probably declining. So you constantly have to know your market. You constantly have to figure out, how do I reinvent myself? How do I become a pioneer in my industry? And we have to constantly be pioneering new things. We have to constantly be going in new places. The second mindset shift when you're using data is you have to say, I'm a collaborator. Because you can't do it alone. We can't achieve our business goals alone. But the cool thing was, when we have metrics, then we can go to other partners that are going to help us achieve our goals and say, this is a goal of mine. These are my metrics. This is the accountability that I'm going to hold. I'm going to decide if you're worth a partnership with me, or if you're worth if you're providing value to my organization. You have the metrics to communicate what success looks like. When we take on a new client, our very first question we ask them is, if we, as your consultant, are 100% successful, what does that look like to you? So we now have their baseline of what they're going to measure our performance by, and we drive to that, because delivering value to your clients gets you repeat business, it gets you referrals, it increases your brand. So remember, you're always a collaborator, and making sure you're using data and metrics to confirm that you're providing that value that they want, and holding people accountable to that. The next mindset shift is that I am a strategic planner. It's not a title that someone has. Yes, my company might provide strategic planning services, but each leader, each executive should own the fact that that is their plan. It's not what your CPA says. It's not what some consultant says. That business plan has to be owned by you. And you have to know and have the metrics attached to it. And anytime you have a business problem or a business challenge, you need to take the ownership to say, let me pause, let me think about it. What are the goals? What metrics am I going to define success? And then implement. I see a lot of entrepreneurs getting in trouble because they have a situation or a problem and they react. They just do that next thing. Or in the marketing table, they were talking about moving to tactics, right? You can't just do. You've got to plan and then do, and then measure. The next one is, you have to be a change agent. I know change is uncomfortable. It's icky. It can really feel frustrating sometimes. But for you to evolve, to be a pioneer, you're going to have to constantly innovate. You're going to have to figure out how to get people on your team, and it's your responsibility. But the cool thing is, when you have a data-driven culture, you know how information to go to your team, to go to your collaborators and say, hey, this is the current reality. We need to do things different. And so when you can bring that data to them, it will help them rationalize the change, and it will help in your change management process. But you're going to have to pivot. If you want to be successful, you've got to use your data and change and pivot to continue to be innovative and reinvent yourself. And then lastly, high-performing culture leaders have the mindset that they're an evaluator. They're constantly evaluating if what they're doing is working. Is it moving the needle? Is it driving results? And just, kind of taking that approach, staying curious, just being open to new information, new ideas, testing it, small pilots, let's just test this. Where we are now in our business is we've been in business 10 years, and just now in 2019, we launched a new software company. I never in a million years wanted to be a software company. Just like I didn't want to be an author 8 years ago. It wasn't something that was on my plan, but I realized I need to do this for my business. And, we realized that our clients needed technology to help them be more data-driven, to help them have these high-performing cultures. And so in a response to their needs, in me doing research, again, the key is research. All of these successful companies that I have and what I help my clients do is they're founded on research. So we did all the research. There was not a product on the market that existed that I would recommend to my clients. And because innovation and delivering value is such a key, should be a key important thing for companies, in good faith, I couldn't refer any of these other vendors to my clients. So in order to meet their demands and innovate, I realized about a year and a half ago, oh man, I have to do my own medicine. I have to do my own speech. I've got to pioneer. I've got to do something new and different and innovative, and I have to stay curious. And again, I launched market research to confirm the product had value. And so now we're entering into this new phase. And so it's kind of an example of how when you create these high-performing cultures, it's going to take you in places you may have never imagined because of meeting the needs and fulfilling your mission. And then lastly, and this one is really important, and I love that we had a football coach, a coach now and a player earlier today, is you have to have the mindset that you are a coach. I love the Buckeyes. I love Urban Meyer. And does anyone know his record? Like his football record? It's like insane. It's like 172 games to 32 losses, like wins to 32 losses. Just insane over the course of his career. And you realize, did he ever play? I mean, he played football, but as a coach, did he ever kick a ball? Did he ever throw a ball? Did he ever, whatever football players do, tackle? You can tell I never played football. Right? He never was on the field. Yet he has that amazing, impressive record because he knows how to coach those players. And business leaders have to be the same way. They have to be the ones that are encouraging their teams during the downtimes, using the data to motivate and innovate and persist. One of my favorite quotes is from John Maxwell, and it talks about how you only fail if you give up. Do you believe that? You can only fail if you quit. Because if you haven't quit, guess what? You're just improving. You're just reinventing. You're on your journey to a path. And so anytime things don't seem to be going well, we're not hitting our metrics, I always remind our clients and my team that we don't fail unless we quit. If we keep innovating, we will get to the solution. If we listen to our customers, if we're listening to the people that we're serving, if we're really providing value and meeting the needs, we will succeed. So let's keep going. Let's keep innovating. Let's keep driving. So I have a moment if there are any questions that you want to ask, and then I have a closeout slide I want to present you. Yeah?
Can you go back to your national survey slide?
Yep.
I'm just curious what the metrics were on the chart.
Oh.
Not 100%.
Yes. Okay, so this is how you interpret that. I realized people couldn't see this graph. So the red bars are our high culture. The middle bar, blue, those were our moderate culture. And then the yellow bars are our low culture. So how you read this is that 87% of high culture organizations had increased efficiencies. 37% of moderate did, and 12% of low cultures did. So, it's not like all of those that high culture reported this, but you definitely were more likely to succeed if you had those cultures. So that's what I meant. Yeah? A market strategy? Absolutely. Yeah, so what I would recommend that you do is, we had a moment to talk a little bit, and so, it sounds like you're going to open a neighborhood salon. And so talk to the residents, probably women that are going to be using the nail salon, and just learn about them. What hours would be convenient for them? What type, like why do they want to get their nails done? And really kind of understand your customer, understand who they are, because when you know that and you know the problems that they have, you can develop marketing strategies and business plans to address their needs to make sure you're providing value and that they even want a nail salon. Because if you think they do and you learn that they don't, their lives are too busy or they prefer to do it at home, then there's different challenges you're going to have to overcome to get them to come to your nail salon. Yeah, any other questions? All right. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I hope you've learned something. Did you learn something new today? Were you inspired to think about the data you have in your organization and how you're using it? All right, that's good. So maybe some of you love math, others you don't. It's pretty apparent in a conversation. So if you saw this slide previously, you probably thought, why is there a man throwing a boy off the roof in this thing? And what I've found is that most entrepreneurs feel that way when their CPA or their business coach or their consultant tells them, we need metrics, we need numbers, because they have a great idea and they want to create. And it's wonderful, and I want you to create, and I want you to get your great idea out into the world. And so they feel like they're being pushed into the water of high performance and using data, and they feel like it's limiting. But the reality of this picture and the reality of using data in your business is that it's actually not, or you shouldn't have the attitude that you're being pushed. And so this picture is of my son, who now is 13 and a competitive swimmer, so this makes a lot more sense. But at the time, he was not even yet 4 years old. And he saw some older boys jumping off this boathouse, and he said, Mom, can I do this? Can I do this? And I was like, yeah, I don't know. You're so little. I was worried about him being little. But at the end of the day, we said yes, because he knew how to swim, he had a life jacket, and most importantly, he wanted to do this. This is what he had all this excitement, and we didn't want to crush that spirit in him, that sense of adventure in him. So my husband is up there on the roof, and he just held him over, and then he said, okay, I'm ready, Dad, and he dropped him, because there was a boat in this boathouse. There's a motor right there, and we didn't want him, we were just worried his little legs wouldn't propel him over. But it's a great picture for a great analogy that is how I want you to think about high performance. I want you to be like my son. I want you to be jumping into the water, because what it can be doing for your business and how it can help you really deliver the value and the business goals that you have and make a legacy for your organization. So thank you again for your time. It's been a privilege to share with you. Here's my contact information. I can stick around if you have additional questions or would like my card. Thanks again.